I just want to make sure I'm on.
Make sure that there's enough battery. 3. Awesome.
Chilling?
We're chilling.
Okay.
You want me to turn on the music or what?
No. Leave the music on out there because junior high is about to come down. What's up, brother? Oh, perfect. Perfect. You have the sign-up sheet? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. And this is my, I've been a youth pastor for 10 years now. Every parent meeting I do, I start a timer and I hit 20 minutes or less on that timer for parent meetings because I know y'all probably aren't trying to be here all night long. So my commitment to you is I'm gonna fly through a bunch of information, and then at the end of the parent meeting, if you have a question that you feel like is prevalent to all parents of hey, this is probably something that we're all curious about in some way, shape, or form, by all means, ask that question. If you have a question specifically about your son or daughter, I'm just gonna ask that we end the meeting, and especially because I'm filming it I'm gonna throw it on our YouTube. So if you have a friend or another parent that couldn't be here for whatever reason, it'll live on our YouTube page. But if you have a question about your son or daughter, just catch me offline. We'll end the recording right there. And then I'll be able to answer your question, or Sierra will be able to answer your question because she knows a lot more than I do. Cool, so I'm gonna go ahead and start that timer and just start off by saying thanks for making it out. And we try to make it on a night where hopefully we're here anyways, dropping off your son or daughter. And if you have an upperclassman and they drove themselves, thank you for making it out. But my name's Austin. I've been here at Three Crosses now for 5 months, so very new to the Bay Area. I'm from the Bay originally, born in Santa Clara, but I lived here for 2 weeks, so I can't really claim the Bay at all, except my sports fans. I'm a Raiders fan, I'm a Giants fan, I'm a Warriors fan. If any of those things rub you the wrong way, I'm sorry. Blame my dad, blame my grandpa, is how I was raised. But I lived in Southern California for about 7 years, and then I moved onto the mission field when I was 7 years old. I spent most of my life down in a place called Quito, Ecuador in South America. Moved there when I was 7, graduated high school down there at 18, and then came back to the US to go to school. Went to Biola University down in LA, studied Bible there, played soccer there, and then graduated from Biola. Worked at Hume for a couple of summers, the camp that Three Crosses also goes to. Did 3 years up there during summer camp. And then I worked for Hume International, which took Hume in duffel bags internationally for other missionary kids, third culture kids, and put on camp for kids that couldn't go to camp otherwise. Did that for about 4 years with my dad. So a ton of camp experience, loved ministry. I've been a pastor for about 10 years now and love it. I was down at North Coast Church down in San Diego for the last 6 years, working with high school students, and absolutely loved it. My wife was full-time at the church as well. We owned our house in San Diego. We had no plans of leaving, and God has a sense of humor when it comes to our plans for our life. And so God knocked on the door by the name of Danny Strange and John Tunger about last summer sometime, around June. And at the time, both my wife and I were kind of no, we're not moving to the Bay. Everybody's leaving the Bay to go to Idaho or Texas or San Diego. And 4 months later, we were looking at each other over dinner going I think we're moving to the Bay. And so since moving here, man, we love this church. I love the people that I get to work with. I love working with the students of Three Crosses. And yeah, we feel very blessed to be here at the church. And probably the overwhelming thing that I keep coming back to, especially on my hardest days, is don't doubt in the dark what God made clear in the light. And God made it very clear that he wanted Paige and I, my wife and I here. We have 2 little girls. We have a 3-year-old named Piper and a 1-year-old named Phoebe and an Australian Shepherd named Bandit. So yeah, we love the Bay. We're already stoked to be here. We are currently living in an Airbnb, which is not the best. It's not super fun, but we're like actively looking for housing and stoked for the next season here in the Bay Area. But that's a little bit about me, just kind of 30,000 foot view. I love ministry. I love church ministry. And yeah, I grew up in it. And like my parents are 2 of my absolute best friends. My dad's one of my best friends. My mom, I call her my spiritual guru. I call her all the time and go like, hey, help me unpack this concept. 3 older siblings that are all really close with me as well. And yeah, love my family. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. You'll hear more about me over the years, hopefully through your son or daughter, hopefully the good things, probably some of the bad things too. But yeah, just feel honored to be here at Three Crosses and on staff, and excited to work with junior hires, high schoolers, young adults. I'm the family pastor, me and Austin Foxworthy. It takes 2 Austins to be the family pastor of Three Crosses. So he's kind of birth through 5th grade, and I'm 6th grade through young adults. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. My heart for Omega, I love high school students, and it's such a pivotal time in life. 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, these 4 years as students aren't junior hires anymore. Your freshman, if you have a freshman, is such a bizarre year because you go from like, you don't want to be that goofy kid anymore, but you're definitely not sure of who you are as a high school student yet. And so you're figuring it out, right? Freshman year, we probably all remember freshman year, and some of us have like really cringy stories from freshman year. And then sophomore, the term sophomoric literally means know-it-all. Any sophomore parents in the house? Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? You go like, I'm no longer a freshman, I'm a sophomore now, and I have all of life on lock, and I have it figured out. And sophomore year it's a funny year of high school. And then junior and senior year, I feel like high school students start to become human beings again. You start to be able to have like a conversation with them. And our upperclassmen, I'm very much so looking forward to our upperclassmen setting the culture this next year as we bring in a massive 8th grade class from 2020. Lauren has done an incredible job over there pastoring those students, and I'm really excited for the foundation that is being laid in 2020 as we pick up on that in Omega. But my heart for this ministry is absolutely, I just wrote down 3 things as I was prepping for this. Like, I want to create something where on a weekly basis, high school students just get to have fun, right? And there's no part of me that's trying to compete with the world with fun. Like if a high school student's main goal is to have fun, this probably isn't gonna be the place that they come week in and week out. Like, there's so many other things they could be doing. And yet, I believe wholeheartedly that fun and creating a fun environment is something that high school students need, right? The ability to just let their hair down, play, like the innocence of fun is something that we chase after all the time. So a luau tonight, Kajabi can in the gym, like even walking up tonight, it's like, this is a pretty normal thing with high school experience where we go, let's build relationships through fun. That's the second one I wrote down, is a community. And I wrote, like, in parentheses next to community, a safe community. We want Omega to be a place where people can come, invite their friends. I believe that there should always be like 4 buckets with ministry, that there's always gonna be a crowd, people just checking out this ministry. There's gonna be the committed, right? Where that are like, hey, I'm here, I'm down for it. And then there's gonna be this core that are like, hey, I'm gonna be the ones that are serving. I'm gonna be the ones that are like coming to Omega Plus, which I'll talk about in just a second. But you have like your checking it out, your crowd, your committed, your core. Sorry, I missed checking it out in the first one. That's like, those are maybe you're a non-believing friend that can come and be a part of a safe community, have a lot of fun, check out church for the first time, especially here in the Bay. I'm already seeing like the amount of students we're interacting with that are just completely like post-Christian, never been to church before, don't know Jesus, haven't heard the gospel. So we always want to create an environment where that like top of funnel, like I'm not interested in creating like a Jesus juke club where everything is Christianese. Like, we want to make a place where somebody can come that's never heard the gospel, that's never read the Bible, that's never been to church before, and feel like, oh, cool, like this is a spot that I can be safe. This is a spot I can come and check it out and hang and belong. And then those people that are the crowd, the committed, the core, we're always, how do we move students through that, from checking it out into the crowd, into the committed, into the core, and community is so much of that, of we want to build a place where students can experience genuine relationship. And so that's from my staff, which we'll talk about in just a second. That's from our small group leaders. We have incredible small group leaders in Omega. That's been one of the things that has already blown me away in the last 5 months, of the amount of small group leaders that have been here. Like, the longevity is massive. And I, on my own, have zero chance of pastoring 100 plus high school students. And so our whole mission is to take small group leaders and have them be the ones that are actively discipling our students. Like Marilyn. Marilyn, how long have you been a small group leader in Omega?
Including, I took a 4-year break, but 8 years.
8 years. That's unheard of. Like, that's not a thing. Like, I've done youth ministry for 10 years. I've interacted with a bunch of youth pastors. Like, a small group leader will give you maybe 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, they're like, I'm definitely done, right? Like, it's tough sledding. And yet Maryland is like we have 32 small group leaders in Omega, and a lot of them have been around for a long time. And so that's just a huge blessing of creating a community where your students are going to be loved on, not just by me, not just by my staff, but by small group leaders that are in their lives, attending their games, reaching out to them over text, that actually know like the ins and outs of what's happening in their life. So, and then the last thing I wrote down was gospel. I have a degree in biblical studies. I love the Bible. I love teaching the Bible. And I believe wholeheartedly that a high school ministry specifically, like, if you preach the gospel, the rest of it will get taken care of. And so much of my passion for high school students is I want to give them a gospel lens to view the world around them. So I don't do a whole lot on like, we're going to talk about like why you shouldn't do drugs, or we're going to talk about like the ins and outs of like how you should date and how you shouldn't date. And for the next 8 weeks, we're going to talk about this. Like, we'll do a dating series, but it's going to be like this last spring we did love, sex, and dating, where I went like, what is love? What is a biblical understanding of sex? And then like we took 1 week and went like, yeah, we'll talk about dating. But for the most part, I believe if you teach students the gospel and you teach students how to read the Bible, their desire for Jesus and the gospel and their understanding of the Bible will help dictate their worldview, which will, everything else kind of falls into place with that. So I'm not trying to chase this endless rabbit trail of like being culturally relevant to this topic and that topic and don't do this and do this. And we'll talk about some of those things, but for the most part, it's going to be like, hey, we're going to do a series through the book of Exodus this summer, right? We're going to talk about the Gospel of John and what are the 7 I am statements? Who is this Jesus character? Really teach students what the Bible is and a biblical worldview, and trust that the rest of those categories are going to fall into place specifically through their small group leaders. So fun, community, gospel. I want to talk about my heart for Omega. Those were the 3 things that stood out to me. Already talked about my leaders a little bit, but my staff, this is Sierra, if you guys haven't met her. Sierra is awesome. Sierra is, if you get a parent email ever or anything ever seems organized in Omega, it's because of her. She is my right hand, my ride or die, and I love doing ministry with Sierra. But our staff is Sierra plus 3 other associate directors. And so this is like a new model that we're rolling out in Omega, but it'll be me with like a right-hand gal, Sierra, and then a right-hand guy who we're actively hiring. And then each one of those associate directors, right-hand guy, right-hand girl, will have like associate directors underneath them. And so the whole goal is to build relationships. One of the mantras we say in Omega a lot is like, students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so with those associate directors, like our whole model top down is Sierra and then Andrew Madrigal, if you know him, and then this guy that I'm actively trying to hire, and then Lisbeth. The 4 of them will be pouring into our small group leaders, and our small group leaders will be pouring into our students. And so our whole model, from checking it out to crowd to committed to core, is built on relationship. And so we believe like the way that we close the back door of our ministry is through relationship, and that relationship is the bridge that truth travels over. And so I'm not just trying to throw a party every week and hoping that students show up. It's like, we want to build relationships with students so that when we throw a party every week, we know who's there and we know how to disciple them and we know how to invest in those students. And so a big part of those 4 associate directors is like the goal is relationship. You know your small group leaders know your students, and we can build a ministry based off of those relationships. So my staff is everything to me. I spend the majority of my time working on like, hey, where are we going as a ministry? And then like, how do I love on my team? And how do I love on my staff? How am I in their life? I know the ins and outs of their life. When I left North Coast, that was hands down the hardest thing for me to leave, was 6 years of relationship I had with my team, 6 years of relationship I had with my small group leaders. I had 41 small group leaders, and I was in every one of their lives. Like, I knew them, they knew me, they were in my house all the time. And some of them better than others, obviously. Like 41 people, you can only have so much relationship. But like when I walked away, I was sad to leave the students, but I think my role is I'm more of a principal than I am a teacher, right? I know my good kids, I know my bad kids, everything in between. I might not know them, but I know that leader really well, and that leader knows my students. And that's, I believe wholeheartedly in that leadership model of we can build a ministry that's really sustainable if, man, I know my core kids, and I'm going to invest in them, and they're going to serve, and they're going to be involved, they're going to get plugged in, and then there's always going to be the disciplinary issues, right? And I'm always going to step into those and go like, I got this one. Everything in between is going to be top down, my staff and my small group leaders. So that's a little bit of our team and our model. Let me touch down briefly and talk about Hume. Hume this summer, I'm a Hume guy through and through. Fun fact, this is only my second time ever receiving Hume. So I've been on staff there for years. I've put on camp. I teach up there. I'm teaching up there twice this summer in their junior high camp and their high school camp. But to be like on the receiving side of Hume is so foreign to me. So I'm going to feel a little bit outside my skin this summer. We've run camp ourselves for the last 6 years at North Coast. And so sitting back and receiving Hume and just getting to hang out with students, I'm going to be like, this is awesome. I just get to spend a week with my kids and with my leaders. And so I'm really looking forward to it. We have 35 on our wait list right now. And I am calling both directors, Annalisa and Mikey, are like dear friends of mine. And so I'm calling them all the time going like, give me my 35 spots. And they keep telling me the same thing, that they are full, waiting on churches to drop spots. And so we're really, fingers crossed, hoping to get as many people off that wait list as humanly possible. But it requires a church backing out of their spots, which churches don't do quickly, but they also don't want to get strapped financially with paying for spots where they're not taking students. So these next month and a half-ish will be the determining factor of like how many of those kids we actually get to bring with us. But we'll do one more parent meeting combined 2020 and Omega, specifically talking about Hume. So if you have Hume questions, probably just keep those on hold for now or find me afterwards. But we'll do a parent meeting like the week before we go, talking through all Hume details. But I wanted to give you that flyby real quick of like, we filled up really quick. We have a bunch of kids on the wait list. If your son or daughter's on the wait list, we're gonna do everything humanly possible to get them to Hume. Cool?
If you have payment or registration questions, I can help with those things. And then also, last year we took our entire wait list, so hopefully that's the same this year. But it does, yeah. The final payments are due in 2 or 3 weeks for the churches. So hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll hear from them. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. Real quick, let me talk about summer Tuesday nights. Hopefully you've heard of this by now, and I know it's a big change. Omega has been on Wednesday nights since 1941, which is insane. Young Life claims to be the oldest ministry in the world, but like youth ministry, sorry, not the oldest ministry in the world. Let's be clear. But the youth pastor, fun piece of history here, if I have the time. The youth pastor was an invention post World War II. World War II, there weren't enough dads that came home from World War II to continue discipling their families. And so churches popped up and said, we need male role models for our students. And so there was the role of the youth pastor was formed in the 40s. And Three Crosses was one of the first churches to have that role. And Omega was founded in 1941. Young Life was founded in 1943. And same thing. We want to create a group, a space where young people can come together, have positive influences to look up to because dad didn't come home from war. So all that to say, Omega's been on Wednesday nights for a very long time. But for almost the entire time that Omega and 2020 have been in existence, which 2020 came a little bit later, they've been on 2 separate nights. And so 2020 was on Tuesday nights for a long time. They moved to Thursday nights for a season. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, our church launched community nights. And when community nights launched, the whole heart for the church was like, let's make something for families to come back to church in person, where an entire family can show up, and there's something for the parents, there's a meal, there's something for junior hires, and then high school was already on that night, which was awesome. Like, for that time and that season, I wholeheartedly believe that that was like the best foot forward for our church. Now we're at a place where on any given Wednesday night, we have rooms, like small group rooms, that have 25 plus kids in them. That's not a small group, right? It no longer can be called a small group when there's 25 plus kids on it, and there's not another room on campus during community night. So we had like a room upstairs with 25 sophomore girls in it. We had a green room across the campus with 25 8th grade girls in it. And you just go like, we lose the ability to do what small groups were meant to do when we don't have the space to do it. And so we got together as a team. Sierra and I had like a million jokes this spring of just going like, reason number 373, we have to have our own nights of ministry. But the primary one was like space, right? Omega is the smallest it's been in a very long time right now. 2020 is booming. And if 2020 continues to grow, and if Omega grows at all, we won't have small group space as community nights still happen. So that's the primary reason we're moving. The secondary reason is like, I have a huge heart for cultivating a space where high school students can be high school students. I believe you can only do one well. You can either create a space that works for junior hires or a space that works for high school students. And I don't want to shush the 6th grader that's running and screaming and going like, ah, like a night away from mom and dad, right? But when my 6th grade student's doing that, my senior's kind of rolling their eyes going like, I do not want to be here. Like, this is not the space that I feel like is a cool spot to hang out midweek. So a big part of what we're doing is like, 1 is size, 2 is like, I'm passionate about making, like, I would love to disciple a family birth through senior year. And a big part of that is like, if you come in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade and 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade, by the time you get to 11th and 12th grade, if you've been doing the same thing and you're still putting up with the 6th graders, like, if I'm an 11th and 12th grader, I'm checking out at that point. And so we're seeing that a little bit right now. And so what we're trying to do is like infuse life back into our high school ministry by creating something that's like specifically for high school students. And so I know that's a big change. What I'm asking for is like for you to bear with me for the summer. So for June, July, and August, we're moving to Tuesday nights to go like, let's try this on. I'm a big like trial balloon guy. Like any change we implement in ministry will typically come in the form of a trial balloon to go like, let's try this on. And if it's the worst idea ever, let's get to the end of this trial balloon and go like, that was the worst idea ever. But it also might be really healthy for both ministries. So I'm at the point where I don't think they can coexist on the same night. I'm not totally convinced that Tuesday nights is the night. And so I think the only other night that really realistically works throughout the week is like Monday, maybe Thursday. But we're kind of playing with that. I'm talking to like the principal at Redwood, the principal at Arroyo, the principal at CVHS. I'm talking to coaches, marching band. Like, we're trying to wrap our heads around what is happening throughout the week on a Tuesday night versus a Wednesday night versus a Thursday night versus a Monday night, and then making the best decision for our church moving forward. So again, I know that's a big change. I know we're going to step on some toes there. Everything I'm trying to do is curate a ministry for 2020 and families of junior high students that's best for them, a ministry for high school students that's best for them. And I know, like, it's just impossible with a church this size, with ministries this size, for us to create something that's best for everyone, but we're really trying to do what's best for the future of these two ministries. Lastly, this fall, right? A big part of what we're trying to do is focus on small groups. A big part of what we're trying to do is build a core with our ministry called Omega Plus. We meet every Sunday morning at 11:45. So 10 a.m. is our Omega service. So if you have a high school student that wants to come to church, the 10 a.m. service is the service that we meet at. Immediately after that, at the 11:45, we do our student leadership team, which is just called Omega Plus. It's like Omega Plus, right? If you want more, come to Omega Plus, right? It's just the ability to go like, if you want to dive deeper, if you want to understand more about what leadership means, if you want to be on one of our service teams, play on the worship band, jump into a tech team, serve in any capacity, that's the place where our core is going to be built out of. And then I'm passionate about fun. And so we're going to do a bunch of fun events. We have a big fall classic this fall. We're going to blow it up, invite a bunch of people into here, have like a themed 4 nights competition, all of that. We'll do a guys retreat, a girls retreat. We're going back to Disneyland this year. Just doing a bunch of awesome things that I'm excited to continue to grow this high school ministry. But that's like 30,000 feet. The last thing I'll say is Klaviyo is a platform that we are moving towards for parent communication. I don't know about you, but I get a million emails. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I'm already getting like way more emails than I possibly can read about like them from my preschool and Happiness Hill and like all this other stuff. And so I get a ton of emails. You probably get a ton of emails. What I'm trying to do is like any email I send you will be like bullet pointed, like bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3. If you want more, it's down here, but just give you like really quick information. The reality of our email system right now is we have like 400 plus names on it. And when we send it out, we're like, who is this getting to? Are any of these kids still going to this high school ministry? And so we're moving towards this platform called Klaviyo. Sierra has a sign-up sheet here. If you just give me your name, the best email for you, and a phone number, what we're gonna do here is like we'll use this for email, but we'll also use this for, like we have a texting service where I can text out like, hey parents, this is what's going on this week, and then it sends a text just to you. So it's not gonna be like a group text, it's just like from me, it says like, hey, Nicole, this week we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Here's what your daughter needs to know. Austin, right? It'll just be like quick text message, a lot easier to see than filtering through a bunch of emails looking for that information. Cool? Yes. That's all I got for you. I did okay, 24 minutes, all right? Have some grace for me. But any questions that you think like 30,000 foot question, this is probably every parent has this question. Yes, ma'am.
For Disneyland, it seems to always fall on the Redwoods homecoming weekend.
This week we're going in November.
Or this year.
This year, I mean, not this year. So Danny Strange, our senior pastor, he used to be the Omega pastor, which is kind of fun. Did y'all know our church has only ever had 4 senior pastors? I think that's so cool. It's like, that was one of the things that was super attractive to Paige and I, was like legacy church. He's the 4th senior pastor. Like that says something about the health of our church. But Danny was like, hey, we used to do Disneyland in November. And a big part of it was like Fall Classic is this 4-week, very outreach driven event. And the next trip out of Fall Classic was like, hey, come to Disneyland with us. It was like this low-hanging fruit. Like, if you had fun at Fall Classic, come to Disneyland. It's like the next step of being a part of this community. So we're going to try that this year. So hopefully that won't fall on the same weekend.
We're deciding between 2.
Sign up for Klaviyo and I'll send you a text. Huh?
Could you please clarify what is the difference between Omega and Omega Plus?
Yeah, so Omega Plus is just our student leadership team. And so it's like, it's a completely optional, it's open to anyone in Omega, but it's like an optional student leadership team that they can hop onto if they want more. And so it's during the 11:45 service. So like right now we're going through a 16-week course every week. The first week of a month is on the overarching narrative of the Bible. So creation, fall, redemption, glory. Week 2, we're talking about apologetics. Week 3, we're talking about a spiritual discipline. Week 4, we study the Bible together. And so it's like Omega Plus is a place where they can come together and like dive deeper into what's happening in Omega. So I always want to create something where a student showing up for the very first time doesn't feel lost, but a student that's like ride or die 3 crosses and that goes like, I want more, has an outlet for more. Yeah.
But at the 10 it's a service.
It's during the 11:45 service.
But the 10 o'clock.
The 10 is like just normal Omega. Yep, worship, teaching, worship, game. Yeah, everybody in Omega.
So that was what Alpha was?
Correct. Correct. Yep.
Alpha was a little too intimidating.
Yeah, I named it Alpha out of irony because Omega was called Omega, and I was like, it'd be kind of funny if it was Alpha. And then we very quickly realized Alpha has like the worst connotations ever, so that was my fault. Yeah. Hold on one second. Your hand's been up since the beginning.
Thank you.
Yes.
You both. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then, can you let us know when we can pray before you dismiss us?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
what prayer requests do you have for you and your family?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. The biggest one is housing right now. If any of you have ever moved, like done a big move is hard. And I moved my whole family from San Diego to the Bay Area, which was hard. Like my wife had 2 of her best friends in San Diego, and that was a really hard move. last summer, we had a moment where we were actually at Hume. I was teaching up at Hume at the junior high camp, and that was the same week that Three Crosses was in camp, which is one of the like 20 things that God did in that process where I went like, okay, Lord, like we're paying attention, we're listening. And during that week, my wife looked at me and said, you're not gonna make me go to the Bay Area if I don't wanna go to the Bay Area, right? I'm gonna get choked up right now. And I looked at her and I said, you're not gonna make me stay if I don't wanna stay, right? Like that was the point we were at. We were like on opposite pages. And then we came and visited the church. And when we visited the church, my wife's heart totally shifted. And so we went home and I didn't say a thing, right? Husbands in the room, can I get an amen? I just went like, I'm gonna let you and the Lord figure this out. Like I'm not gonna be the husband that goes like, we're moving to the Bay because I have a job. Like that's not me and Paige. And so she came back to me after probably 3-4 days and went like, I think we're moving to the Bay Area, which was like an utter shock to me at the time. But it's been hard for her. Like the reality of leaving 2 friends, the comfort of our home. We bought a house built in 2015 that was on 4 acres. Like we were living in our dream home, and we had like made some financial decisions early on in marriage that had set us up to be in that home. And once we had gotten there, we were hosting all of my leaders and like doing a ton of ministry on our property. And so leaving that was extremely difficult. So coming to the Bay, transition's hard, and then to not have a house is even harder. And so we feel pretty unsettled still. And so like one of the biggest prayer requests for me right now is like, we're just like actively looking for what is that place that we can land and like start to set those roots down. And so like my everyday is trying to be a good dad to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then like love on a junior high ministry and a high school ministry and launching young adults ministry. And then the reality of like the background in my head is like, oh yeah, and where we're gonna live. Like that's been a wrestle. So yeah, I'm a very passionate human being, if you can't tell that already, but I don't want to do anything watered down. And when I feel like I have a lot of plates spinning, I start feeling like things get watered down. And that's like the number one thing that I'm like, I don't want high school ministry or junior high ministry or my family to get like a portion of me. And so getting settled and then figuring out teams, rhythms, like that's a high priority for me and something that I'd appreciate prayer for. So thank you. There's a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
Does this start next Tuesday? And if so, is the time the same?
Yep, next Tuesday, 7 to 9, same time. So 7 to 9. Yep. So they advertised 6:30 over yonder in 2020. The reality is most of our students show up between 6:30 and 7. So we have all of our stuff out and like cornhole and music and a snack and all that. So if you drop them off at 6:30, they're not going to be lost. But the reality is like our program doesn't start till 7. So 7 to 9 is the time, but if you drop them off early, no problem. Yeah.
And then 9 o'clock is for summer, so when are you guys like expecting to bring it back to 8:30, I think it is? It's gonna stay 7 to 9.
We'll probably be 7 to 9 for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. And 7 to 9 is our, like for the summer, 8:30 to 9, we're calling our after parties. So they'll even leak a little bit beyond that. And so if you're like hanging and you have a junior or a senior and you pick them up at 9:15, 9:30, no issue at all. If you have a freshman or a sophomore and you're like, you want to pick them up at 9, 100% fine. So that's totally on you guys of like, obviously don't leave us here till like 10, 10:30 babysitting your kid. But at the same time, like summer is the time where we want to hang out with students and we want to create an environment that they want to be in. And so 7 to 9 is our program, but a little bit early, a little bit late, especially during the summer, there's a lot of flexibility there. Yeah.
We love your leaders, and you've had them for a really long time.
Yeah.
But how can parents love on them too?
Yeah. Heck yeah. Man, I have 1,000 ideas. How much time do you have? Yeah, there's so many ways. Like if you as parents want to get involved in any way, shape, or form, like I have a long list of things that you could do. So, I mean, there's always like, I had a meal ministry at my last church where I had like a rotation of parents that would come in and go like, not all the time, like I don't want to get to the point where our leaders are showing up going like, where's my dinner? But I would love to be like, hey, next week, you know, the Rices are cooking dinner for our leaders and I get to bless our leaders with like, hey, you don't have to worry about dinner next week. Like that kind of thing's awesome. If any of you is in a place where you want to be a small group leader and your kid's cool with that, I realize for some of you, you're like, my kid's not cool with that. But like, I just recruited Nicole to come and be a small group leader for us. And so,
And my daughter is cool with it.
yeah, like if you're in a spot where you're like, I'd love to be a small group leader and I have the capacity to do that and my kid wouldn't care if I was there, talk to me. I'd love to talk to you about what that could look like. And then we always need volunteers for different things. So like we have this event, like tonight, we got a whole cooking team that's like cooking a meal for the luau. Our high school students are in small groups right now. The junior higher students are doing the luau, and then we'll flip-flop. We'll go out and do the luau. They'll go do their program. But it takes a lot of work to put on a luau. So if you're a parent that's like, I'll cook pulled pork or I'll build sandwiches or whatever it might be, we could always use more volunteers. I will never say no to a volunteer.
Does your small group leaders need to be a part of your church?
Yes. Yeah. Does a small group leader need to be a part of our church? Yeah. That's like probably like a 98% rule for me. Like I've had situations where it was like, okay, that makes sense, and it's like a very one-off thing. For the most part, what we ask of small group leaders is that they're like building into the life of our church. And so I understand we have students that come midweek that go somewhere else on the weekends. And so that's probably like that 2% where I go like, yeah, I get that, I understand that. But for the most part, the mission of Three Crosses, Omega is trying to align with that. And so typically the people that serve in our church are people that attend our church. If you're talking about yourself, talk to me afterwards. Cool? Any other 30,000-foot questions might apply to all parents? Awesome. Daniel, you still back there?
No, he's outside.
Will you go grab him just so we can end that recording?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to end it right there. If you would